What's up, everyone? Welcome to Chronicles with Deanna. I'm being facetious. Anyways, if you have been following me, or really I should say, if you've been following my stories, you have noticed that I started a 75-day challenge about 10 days ago. I'm on day 11 as we speak. For those of you that are brand new, my name is Deanna. I am a full-time faculty teaching early childhood education courses at a community college. I'm also an entrepreneur, aka an indie children's book author. I also am the owner and operator of Outback Learning LLC, and occasionally, and I say very occasional, I do some education consulting, but that really depends on time and what I have going on in my schedule. And sometimes I do presentations and speaking engagements. I say speaking engagements, most of them are on Zoom, but that's a little bit about me professionally. I've been married for almost 19 years this coming March to my best friend. We raised our great niece for 10 years. We have been in our empty nest phase for the last 3 years, and so when he and I are hanging out, we like to travel. We also like to go to shows together. We like sporting events. He's a huge WWE fan, so that means I'm a Cena fan. I like The Rock. The list goes on. But yeah, so we like to do a lot of things together. I also enjoy traveling. I'm gonna say solo, but usually I've never taken a full-on solo trip. One day I will, but usually I travel with friends or with my husband. That's usually how it typically goes, but one day I'll take like a small trip somewhere. But back to the business at hand. So if you have been with me, I don't know, following me professionally, for almost 4 or 5 years now, you've watched me kind of evolve over time. Professionally, I've also tried to share a little bit of like life by sharing those things through my stories typically. And so lately my stories, or maybe I should backtrack, most of my stories are me CrossFitting, because I've been in CrossFit for almost a year and a half. I enjoy it. Shout out to my box. Even when I'm not home, I will go to other CrossFit gyms just for fun. And people are like, what? I feel like it's the best way to kind of get the best of both worlds. You are at a new place, new adventure, different experience, same idea. You want to do a collective, awesome, sweaty workout with other people. I meet new people, buy a new t-shirt for myself, usually for other coaches, and I share. So most of my stories I will post, I CrossFitted today. And then usually on the weekend, I will share some sort of like story about what I was doing, whether it was going to brunch or, some of the things I mentioned earlier in terms of hobbies. And then of course, being an entrepreneur, I'll just share things that I have going on project-wise. That's typically what I do. But right now, I'm doing something very similar, but also very different than what I've done in the past. I enjoy challenges, probably too much, and I might age myself just a little bit. If you are an MTV fan, you probably remember MTV challenges. You don't have to think too hard because they're on their 40th season, and I can't wait to watch it. But I've always just enjoyed that show for a number of reasons. I did sports as a kid. I've always enjoyed working out. I like competitive things, not so much competing with other people, but just really challenging myself. So over the years, I've heard of this thing called 75 Hard. I'm sure everyone has heard of it. I feel like at this point, depending on what your algorithm is telling you. But I like the idea of doing 75 Hard, but I didn't feel like I needed that in my life. I'm already pretty organized and structured and disciplined. I don't need something along the lines of that. So as long as I've known about 75 Hard, probably 4 years now, the challenge. And over the years, people were like, no, I'm doing 75 soft. Basically, people have modified the challenge. And so one of the things I didn't mention in my intro is that I'm a doctoral student. And I've been studying for the last 4 years criminology. That's my specialization. But I'm getting my doctorate in psychology. And I can see the light. I'm in chapter 2. That's where I'm at. I'm doing an applied doctoral project, and there have been challenges. Let's just say that. So 11 days ago, it had kind of dawned on me how I can do a 75-day challenge. Being an entrepreneur, I'm very aware of quarters. So I'm like, okay, we're going into the fourth quarter. What do I really want or need to accomplish in this fourth quarter? I meet with my chair every week. I take extensive notes when I meet with my chair. And it pretty much boils down to like, I need to finish the second chapter. I actually need to finish all of it sooner rather than later. And one of the challenges that I have is I have a 4-hour commute that I have to do to work twice a week. I teach full time. I manage a grant. I teach at night. My schedule is not the typical 9 to 5. It's more like 2 to 10 or 12 to 8. Like, it just depends on the day. I don't want to say it's all over the place because I'm still very structured in what I do every single day, but it's unique. And thankfully, my years of social work and having that type of autonomy with your work, I have figured out like my sweet spot to kind of manage everything. But I decided, I said, okay, I know that I need to write more intentional, like every day. Because when I talked with my chair, even though there's things that she has said to me, I've said this to students, she's like, well, you really need to be writing like 20 hours a week. 15, 20 hours, theoretically. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. I just know that. And up until this conversation, normally my writing would be Sundays for like 2 hours. And then somehow during the week, I would get another 2 hours in of like revisions. So I'm like, technically, I'm like 16 hours short. And I said, okay, realistically, what does this really look like? And she's like, well, for my working students, it should be 10 hours, but 7 hours is better than like doing 2 or 3. It was something about saying 7 that I was like, oh, that seems manageable. So I walked away from that conversation thinking how I have got to figure out how to do a minimum of 7 days. Doesn't mean I can't, or 7 days, 7 hours. Doesn't mean I can't do more than 7 hours, but at minimum I have to do 7 hours. So being that I CrossFit at minimum 3 days out of the week, I also have a spin bike. I also like simply walking outside. I was like, I think I could do a 75-day challenge. So literally, I created my own challenge for myself. So that's what you're seeing in my stories, is that every day I have to do some level of movement. I don't have a time stipulation on it because I know I'm going to move. I know I'm going to walk, intentionally walk, or I'm going to be going to CrossFit, or I'm getting on the spin bike. It's one of the 3 things. If it's light outside, I'm walking. If it's Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, I'm going to CrossFit. I'm getting out because I'm also this weird, awkward, hybrid worker, and I need to interact with people at some point in my life. And when I can't do that, then I just get on the spin bike when I get off from work, or first thing in the morning when I'm starting my day. On a good day, sometimes I spin in CrossFit. That doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. So I started the challenge 11 days ago, and I said, okay, I gotta keep myself accountable. And I felt like I made good progress. I could see that I was honestly getting somewhere. I'm like, wow, I'm making solid headway. I am synthesizing these paragraphs I need to get done. I'm also like getting the theoretical framework mapped out a little bit better. I'm finding more sources. Like, I just felt like I was getting somewhere. My chair recommended that I also send my stuff to Tutor on Demand, which I did that, which produced it felt like 500 more comments for my paper. So I had that, and then I was rectifying some of the comments she had already put on there in terms of revisions. And the hardest part of this whole process is the writing process, the revision process, and then the other part that's kicking my butt is the alignment for APA. It is just the bane of my existence. Now, as some of you know, I'm an indie author, so it's not like I don't enjoy writing. I actually enjoy writing a lot. I just tend to write in a very specific process. You write first, you draft everything first, you revise second, you go through peer review, and you fix your alignment last. That's just what I've done. I've done it for years. It's worked for me. And up until I started this ADP Applied Doctoral Project, aka also a dissertation, I can explain that another day. This is what I've had to do. It's just been this hodgepodge, which has made it even more overwhelming. So now let's get down to what happened yesterday. I had my meeting with my chair, and everyone says when you're working on a doctorate, everyone, I've heard it, they're like, you hit a breaking point where you just hit a wall. And I'm like, really? Does that happen? I feel pretty good. I feel pretty confident. Yesterday was that day. I hit a wall. I got off that call so defeated because, as I shared with you guys, I, up until yesterday, had been on this 10-day challenge. I'm like, look at me. I'm doing 7 hours a week. And I failed to mention, at minimum, I have to write 45 minutes a day. And that 45 minutes can be writing, revising, alignment, reviewing materials. It's all included in that time. Depending on the day of the week, sometimes I'm writing more than 45 minutes just because I have more time. But I got off of that Zoom call so defeated. I proceeded to look at the handbook explaining to me again what I'm supposed to be doing, even though I feel like I've read that thing 1,000 times. I understand what a literature review is. I understand what I'm writing about, but for some reason I'm overthinking. I don't know, but basically what I took away from that call was you're not getting this right. You're completely wrong. And of course, emotions were high because there's also a lot of pressure to get it done. And hearing about other students and their progress, I'm not motivated by other people's progress. I've never been that kind of person. I'm not going to start doing that at 41. So hearing that somebody was able to get through so many chapters in 12 weeks or 9 weeks, it means nothing to me because I'm like, what are the variables? What do they have going on in their lives? Do they have children? Do they commute to work? Are they only entrepreneur? Are they managing a grant? Who are they? What are they? And I don't want anyone to compare their journey to me either, because again, too many variables to make that kind of comparison. We all manage our time differently. We all approach things differently. And what I've learned in this process for myself, I need time. I really need time to make sure that I'm understanding and doing everything properly. And the hardest part is being a student in this situation. And thankfully, I reached out to a really good friend, colleague of mine that has already gone through this process, because I felt so defeated and was like, I don't know what to do. Like, family and friends are supportive. They pray for me. They look over me, all the things. But they'll be honest, they don't really know what I'm going through. They only know whatever I'm sharing. And so my friend said to me, she said, doing a doctorate, let alone a dissertation, it's an isolating process. And I was like, oh, that's so key. This is, you know how when, like, you just know you're hearing from someone with experience with what you're going through? That's what I felt. I was like, she is absolutely right. This is a very isolating experience. It is lonely. And it's hard, especially when you believe in what you're writing about. And so she shared just the supports that she had gotten from her institution and some things that her and her peers had done together, and to help all of them get through their process. And it was just really empowering. I reached out to another friend who's in the early stages of her doctoral program, and of course she's just like, I'm praying for you, you've got this. She's also my editor and publisher for my 2 indie children's books. And so we understand it because we have a system in place when it comes to writing and revising and all of those things. She's just super, super supportive. And so I walked away feeling like more clarity. And I'm the type of person, when I hit that rock bottom, when I really, really hit it, all the signs start to point north. It's like God just shows up into the space and he's like, here's the plan. So, although midday I was in tears, eating my lunch in silence, and my better half giving me lots of comfort, like, you're going to be fine, you're going to be okay. And he had no idea what was going on. He didn't know, like, what meeting I came out of. He didn't know if it was work or what. I just was not in the space to talk about it, other than I felt like I was ready to quit. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? I don't need to do this. And we eventually talked about it last night when we were taking our walk. So I'm going to wrap up this video. But basically, while we were walking, I told him what was going on. And it's so funny. The second I finished telling the story, mind you, it is dark outside. We hear coyotes howling. And it was a full moon. Okay? So we looked at each other. I grabbed his arm and I was like, we need to make it back to the house, like, right now. So again, I just think it's funny how at the end of the day, I was crying midday, but by that evening, I had fear in my life because I thought the coyotes were going to get us, because they were literally, they were there. And now this morning, all we could do was laugh about it. So anyways, welcome to day 11 of my challenge. I plan to do updates, car chronicle updates, and maybe I'll do day-to-day updates. I don't know. But I definitely want to take you guys along the journey. And I also want to share the journey for myself, to be able to have like a video journal of this challenge. And I want to be able to document the ups and downs of it. And maybe even after the 75 days of a challenge, maybe I'll continue documenting. I don't know. There's no pressure. But for all of the ladies and men, or anyone working towards a doctorate, you're not alone. And I hope my goal and my intention is to build some level of community. And especially for those of us that are doing this later in life, that are, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. So I hope that me checking in and just sharing where I'm at in my process will encourage you. And when you're feeling alone in doing this work. So, anyways, have an amazing day. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Whether I'm in my car or maybe I'm sitting in my office. I don't know where I'm going to be. But if